It's the Brad and John Show.
It's the Brad and John Show for the 21st of May, 2025. This is the C block, Charlie block, which means we start right around 7:45. John, what do you think what's going on? There's been the talk of talk radio has been the cancer diagnosis from Joe Biden. I mean, do you have an opinion on this, or do we not even want to talk about this?
Oh, well, we could certainly talk about it. I mean, I'm not an expert on prostate cancer, but I mean, it seems like it's legitimate. What's I guess the controversy that you're referring to, Brad, is I'm guessing that people are saying that Biden knew about this a long time ago and didn't mention it because he knew, a year ago he was still running for re-election. Is that the complaint about it?
Well, the thing I keep hearing, maybe this is the Republican spin on this, is that this is like, oh, we can't be mad at Joe because he's got this disease and it's terrible, because this is all around the Jake Tapper, what's the guy's name? Alex Robinson. I can't remember his name. You know all the names. He came up with the name yesterday. His co-author, the Axios
Was it
guy.
Rosenberg?
No.
Or am I stereotyping?
No, it's not Rosenberg. It's the guy. It's the co-author of the book who was an Axios reporter. And,
I'll look it up while we're talking.
And the idea being that this is the smoke screen to essentially take away. It's essentially nullifying the impact of their book. It's
Alex Thompson.
Thompson.
So what you're saying, Brad, is the conspiracy theory, so to speak, is that this news is coming out now because Biden looks so bad. And if Biden has aggressive prostate cancer, then people are less likely to criticize his presidency.
Yes, and that's what's been voiced. And there's several medical experts, and I've seen on TV, and almost to a person, they all say, this just doesn't add up. Because of the fact that and you make fun of me. I don't take care of myself to the level I should, and you make fun of the fact that every year I do the Dave Sinclair free prostate cancer screening. And it's so simple. All they do is they do a blood draw. And men out there, I'm telling you, if you don't do this, it's so simple. Every year, what they did a couple months ago, John, where I did it. Remember I told you I went.
Yeah, you did. Yeah, you do it every year, right? You just go out there and explain how it works, Brad.
They have it at their 3 dealerships one night. They have it like I think it's always on a Wednesday. One Wednesday it's at the Ford dealership in South County. The next Wednesday it's at the GMC Buick dealership there on Tesson Ferry in Lindbergh, and then the third Thursday or third Wednesday, whatever it is, they have it out at the Lincoln dealership out there in St. Peters. And you go in, it couldn't be any easier. You go in, you fill out a little, they give you a clipboard, you fill out your little information, they give you an envelope, you pre-address the envelope so it comes back to you. They call your name. I'm usually in and out in 10 minutes. They do a blood draw. Some people get freaked about that, but to me it's like, no big deal. They draw your blood and they go, okay, we'll send you results, and you get a letter in the mail saying, hey, everything's looking good. See you again next year. And typically what happens is if you do this over a course of time, they plot your, I don't know what it is, antigens or something like that. And if you start having whatever these numbers is, they start to go in one direction, that's when they bring you in for a little bit more testing. Okay, this is at the time he was the president of the United States. This is now the former president of the United States. When he is the president of the United States, he is never more than 100 feet away from a doctor who is dedicated to him. When he is in a motorcade, there is an ambulance and the doctor and paramedics who follow him around. If he has a hangnail at 3 o'clock in the morning, he can jump in the limousine and go to Walter Reed Medical Center, and they can, with their super sterile toenail clippers, cut off his hangnail. How in the world does this happen? That out of the clear blue, he's elevated to the point where it's metastatized to his bone. Because all the experts are saying, that's not the way this works. They're all saying the same thing.
I mean, I take your word for it, Brad, that all the experts are saying that. When I heard that he has aggressive prostate cancer, it sounded to me like it's a specific type that's different than a normal prostate cancer. But I don't know. I'm not an expert on this. So I guess I mean, maybe in the bigger picture here, Brad, instead of worrying if you're a libertarian or a conservative, instead of worrying about whether or not Joe Biden is going to escape criticism, maybe we focus on what's happening in the Trump administration and how to shape those policies.
Well, okay. Here's my view as far as a media guy with 2 useless journalism degrees. And I hear people talk about this all the time. What's happened over the past 4 years of the Biden administration has tremendously shaken confidence in what the government's telling you. Okay? Let's go back to the beginning where we have the whole situation with COVID. Hey, we've got Dr. Fauci. If you take this vaccine, you will not get COVID and you will not pass it along. Okay? I took the vaccine, drove to Raytown, Missouri, drove 1,000 miles, 500 miles, 250 miles, one direction 4 times, got the vaccine. I've had COVID 3 times. Okay? All the crazy stuff that's come out, even to the point where the thing that always amazed me is, are you a pet owner, John?
I am not.
Okay. Have you ever had pets before?
I have, yeah.
Have you ever had pets that were aggressive to people?
No.
Okay. I know people that have pets that they became aggressive to people and they got rid of the pets. Unfortunately, sometimes they were euthanized. And once again, everybody made fun of Kristi Noem because of the fact that she took her dog, which was a disobedient dog, and she took her dog out back onto the South 40 and shot it in the head. Okay. Remember the bizarre story about Biden's German Shepherd commander that was biting?
Yeah, and it was attacking people, right?
Right, the Secret Service agents. Okay, if you are a thoughtful pet owner, the first time that happens, aren't you going to say, well, you know what? Maybe that dog doesn't belong here. Maybe we need to find a home out in northern Missouri for some farmer that needs a dog to protect his chicken cook.
Yeah, and Brad, I think I interrupted you. You were making a point about trusting the federal government on medicine. You mentioned COVID.
Well, the COVID thing. And all these things that came out during the Biden administration. It's to the point where, do you believe anybody anymore? Even to the point like with Trump, do you believe what Trump says? Do you believe?
Yeah, so let me interrupt, Brad. I don't think I've told the story before, but I remember when Trump was president in March of 2020, and I remember him talking about how he was, with Operation Lightning Speed or whatever he called it, he was going to have the greatest vaccine in the history of vaccines, and nobody's ever seen vaccine production like this. And I didn't believe President Trump, and I didn't believe some guy that we had hardly heard of named Fauci. I didn't believe any of it. I certainly wasn't about to go subject myself to an experimental COVID vaccine, but I just don't believe any of it. And I don't know. I have what I think you're getting at, Brad, which I agree with, is I have wonderful friends who are progressive who believed the whole shelter in place, 2 weeks to stop the spread. If you loved your community and your family, you need to get vaccinated because that'll keep you from getting COVID. It'll keep you from spreading it. And there are good people who I think are incredibly naive who got the vaccine. I don't know how a grown man believes the federal government when they tell him about a vaccine. And I'm not insulting you, Brad. I'm just saying, and I think that there are probably cases of elderly people and geriatrics and whatever who, if they got the vaccine, they probably thought that it would protect their health. And I understand being scared and getting a vaccine. I wouldn't do it. But how are you ever going to trust the federal government when it comes to your health?
Well, the federal government are, in our case, the city government or the county government. How are you going to believe Sam Page when he says anything? When he says, oh, we need a new logo. We're spending $40,000 of taxpayer.
Now, and you're getting into a little bit more policy oriented. But Brad, you do a great job of the hundreds of drums that you bang on a regular basis. You point out with great accuracy the fact that the federal government lied to St. Louis County residents for decades.
Yes.
For 80 years about Mallinckrodt and Coldwater Creek. How are you going to believe a government report about XYZ?
Look, you've pointed out exactly. You have made my point better than I've made my point. And I'm glad you brought that up. How are you going to believe a federal, just what you said, They dumped all this radioactive waste in north of part of the airport, right next to Coldwater Creek. I can show you the exact spot. You can't go there anymore because the McDonald Boulevard is blocked off because they said they had to replace the bridge. But that's
and you know that's not true. It's not a bridge; it's a culvert, right?
But I don't care what it was. It's BS because of the fact that I personally witnessed the site was on the south side of McDonald, okay, right there on the north side of the airport, south side of McDonald. I've driven it dozens of times. And all of a sudden, one day I noticed the track hose were on the north side where the athletic fields used to be, where I used to umpire Little League games. I thought to myself, that's interesting. They said all the waste was on the south side of McDonald. Now they're on the north side of McDonald. And pretty soon they kept getting closer and closer and closer to McDonald with the track hose. And I'm thinking to myself, I wonder if McDonald is built on the contaminated soil. And then all of a sudden they come out and they say, we're going to replace the McDonald bridge there between Lindbergh and Airport Road because the bridge is in bad shape. And there was no bridge. It was a culvert. See, once again, John, do you believe that there was something wrong with that bridge, culvert, whatever it was?
No, of course not. And I mean, they have their version of the story. What I find frustrating is that if you were a libertarian or a liberal or conservative or however, or none of the above, you want to pick and choose what you think the government is telling the truth about. So I'll point out my own hypocrisy here, Brad. I think the government has been telling the truth all along about the safety of genetically modified organisms and the safety of glyphosate and the safety of pesticides. But then when another administration like Barack Obama comes in or Joe Biden is, then I say, well, they're being a little bit too hard on that corn herbicide, or they're being a little too hard on this. Like, we pick and choose whether we believe the government based on our ideology. In general, I don't believe anything the government says, or at least you can't take something the government says and say that it's a fact just because the government said it. Brad, you pointed out exactly. We trust the government to have our storm alarms ready to go. And look what happens. Why do you trust the government?
That is why preppers exist, because of the fact.
Yes, you're exactly right, Brad. That's why people listen to Alex Jones and spend thousands of dollars on meal replacement packs and think that they're going to be have to be in their bunker, and they might be right.
But the sad part of this is that, and I have to admit, I didn't do it this round, okay? I got chainsaws. I have several chainsaws. I've got good chainsaws. I don't have junky chainsaws. I've got expensive steel chainsaws, S-T-I-H-L, not S-T-E-E-L.
I know what you mean.
Some of which I've got 2 professional arborist saws, okay? Not bragging or anything like that, okay? For the first time in a long time, I didn't use them, okay? With the last tornado thing. I was considering going down, I go and clear some stuff. I go, no, I don't think I'm going to do it this time. Okay, but the idea being is, it's amazing that people that I know that I have this stuff, when they need help, they call me because I'm prepared, and they're not. You know what I'm saying? And the same thing, people make fun of the preppers, but when we see a situation, and because of the fact, and John, you know this because of the fact that your involvement in industry, the Japanese have inadvertently hurt our country because of the fact they came up with this manufacturing technique called JIT, J-I-T, just in time.
Yeah, that was Toyota came up with that, right?
Right. And the idea being, and if you're going to build cars, instead of having a warehouse with 100,000 engines in it, and then 100,000 fenders and 100,000 bumpers, and you build it, you don't do that. If you need 20 engines for your production that day, at 8 o'clock in the morning when the production line starts, 20 engines shows up in the back of a flatbed truck, and you put those 20 engines. So in other words, the idea is you don't stockpile things anymore. You want it as you need it. This is a perfect example what happened during COVID, where the supply chain collapsed because of the fact that all of a sudden the daily, number of people that went to Schnucks and bought hand sanitizer, Schnucks could tell you, okay, on a daily basis we sold 350,000 units of hand sanitizer until the COVID-19 thing hit. And then all of a sudden, in one day, we sold 350,000 units of hand sanitizer, and that's all we have. And we placed an order with our supplier, and he says, I'm sorry, but our warehouse is empty because of the fact that Safeway just ordered 10 million units of hand sanitizers. That's the whole problem with what's happened in general, and that's why I don't make fun of preppers. I think the preppers are the smart people. I think they're the ones that essentially saying, you know what? It's almost to the point where it goes back to what's the old crazy thing with Reagan used to always say, trust but verify.
Yeah, trust but verify, yeah.
Trust your government, but verify that you're going to be okay because of the fact that you got the backup, you got the backup generator, you got, 100 gallons of water in the basement, you've got MREs that'll last you for a year. You trust that the government's going to take care of things, but you verify the fact that if the stuff, what's the Shelley term again?
She says something to the effect of manure or defecation hitting the oscillating rotator, something like that.
Right, the rotating oscillator. If that happens, you're good to go. And I think that's a sentiment that everybody should have. I mean, am I weird for saying that?
No, I think you're absolutely right. I also think that part of it is just a male provisioning instinct. So what man doesn't like to have a generator, a chainsaw, water, electronics backed up from here to Timbuktu, just in case you need it?
We're talking about boomers as opposed to the generation, alphas, whatever. They don't care about stuff because they've never touched a tool in their life, and they wouldn't.
Well, they also know that you could just order something on Amazon and it'll be here tomorrow.
See, I'm almost ashamed to admit that I have two sons that have never held a chainsaw.
Well, hey, but unless your dad teaches you, and maybe that's just, I don't think you should feel ashamed, Brad. I mean, they're making their own choices,
Yeah, but I think that's a part of being a man.
I get what you're saying.
John, have you ever used a chainsaw before?
I have one in my garage.
So, see, you're a man.
Well, that doesn't mean that your son are not men. It just means that they need to call dad to drive to Pensacola. Well, Brett probably has a chainsaw.
Yeah, he's got all sorts of stuff.
Okay, there you go. But you might need to make a drive to South City if you ever need to clear a path, right?
See, here's the sad thing there. Is to the point where, well, I won't go into that. I'll get myself in trouble by that because who knows, my son may be listening if the off chance, or maybe my mom's listening up there in heaven.
She might be, Brad. And she's going to say, Brad, why did you pour all that water softener salt over your transmitter site? Just because you're trying to kill weeds with salt?
You don't think it's going to work, John?
I don't know. It might. You got to give us I'm really curious to hear if that works.
I've gone through 120 pounds of water softener salt over the past week, or actually the past 5 days, and we're going to see if it works or not, because I'm tired of buying ortho junk and Roundup junk and spraying it just like the label says, and I measure out the concentrate and put it into my sprayer and do it exactly as they say, and 2 weeks later the weeds are going, he thought he killed us, but he didn't. We're still alive.
They do laugh at you, Brad. They do laugh at you.
John.
I will see you on, what's your acronym for Thursday? So happy it's Thursday.
So happy it's Thursday, which you can use the same thing for Tuesday as well, too. Have a good day, John.
You too, Brad.